What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the After Bedtime Podcast. Thank you guys so much for been listening and kind of joining in on us on this journey where we're talking with different dads all over the country about their dreams, about what's going on in their lives, and expanding on those things. It's been really great to be able to talk with great dads. And I have a great dad in front of me that I've known for a long time, I believe since like 2008, 2009.
Yeah, we would have met. We would have met
a fellow
in 08,
Sun
09.
Devil, but has a strong faith path that there's no devil in him. I want y'all to know that there's no devil in him whatsoever.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Not anymore. He's saved and sanctified. Praise God. Praise God. I want to introduce Elliott Williams, a good friend of mine that I've known for a very long time, and now seeing him being a great father of two, an amazing husband, a leader in his church, and just all things dad, y'all. Like, Elliott, what's up, man? Say what's up to the people.
Man, it's all good. It's good to see you, man. It's good to be here. And hello to everyone who pains themselves on listening to maybe iota of what I got to say today. But no, hello and thank you. I want to express my gratitude to being invited to this. I saw some rumblings of Jeremy doing a podcast, and in the name of, what he's doing with his foundation, I was like, man, that seems like a good thing. And then you asked me to do it, and I'm like, oh no, wait, that's dad. Oh yeah, I am a dad, and it's so funny being 2 years into it with two now. It's so surreal and it's so awesome. All the emotions, all the words, all the adjectives, but yeah, you kind of forget, like, oh yeah. Your life changes quick, right? You can sometimes put the mindset on of what we were doing 4, 5, 10 years ago, and it's completely changed. So yeah. I appreciate you.
Do you still play sports and stuff? So, like, a lot of things that we used to do, y'all, was I'll give y'all the non-devil version. We would play basketball. We would go to the rec center. We would go to
we play some flag football, man.
Do you still play ball and still play football?
We'd be at the rec center lifting. We do all of it, really. I think you dusted me in some races before too.
We had actually some pretty good competitions. We actually had a really good rec team, y'all, like 7-on-7 flag football. Yeah, not crazy. To be like back in my day. Back in my day, we was some dogs out there on the football field.
I think what you had was a compilation of individuals who were excellent at what they did in high school sports, not necessarily tapping into the collegiate level, but then when you get into the rec side of things, we were competitive because we were competitive in high school. And so we still had our young man bodies and everything like that. But yeah, to answer your question, sports have changed for me. Not that it's just really the sake of time and what I am allowed to do. And what I mean by allowed to do is what time would give me, and then even what my body will let me do. Quite frankly, I love basketball. We love basketball. We bonded over that. I haven't played basketball since my daughter was born. And wow. I want to get back over there. We have a rec center up the street from where I am. It's a community rec center, and I used to be there all the time, at least once or twice a week. But I don't know if it was just me not playing over amount of time, and I'm sure if I go back out there again, it would be fine. But I'm quite frankly of popping an Achilles, man. I'm terrified of that. I'm well into my 30s. I'm closer to 40 now than I am 30. Yeah. But I'm so afraid of popping my Achilles, man. But granted, nothing's ever indicated that I will do it. Maybe it's watching the tube or hearing stories. I'm like, man.
You got to get back out there. I think definitely if you got back out there, like I think that a lot of the fear could be because you haven't been out there. I play basketball. I think so. All the time. I'd go crazy if I wasn't able to play basketball. It's like one of the only things that I could use to like escape. When I go to the gym by my house, it's got a child care. So I got my little one. I put him in the child care. I can go shoot around for a little bit, even just shooting around. Recently, I played a pickup game, and it was terrifying because I was worried that I was going to hurt myself, and they're all young, and I'm not. And
we go out there. Everybody else is getting younger, man. Everybody else is getting younger, and I'm like,
moves that they can do. I was like, I used to be able to do that, and now I can't.
They used to make me. I wasn't an offensive specialist, but they used to put me on the guy that had the most to him on the other squad. I used to defensively. Now Man, my ego can't let me do that now,
No, bro.
But
I gotta let the younger ones do it. I'm like, y'all, you got it, man. You can go ahead and do it. But it is fun still. So I would encourage you definitely get back. I'm gonna get back out there, man.
I'll tell you what has been taking. Listen, I'll tell you what has been taking up my time. Golf. In terms of recreation, I golf a lot.
You can hurt yourself in golf.
I have. What are we talking about, right? And again, that's just the sheer you getting older. But I think a lot of it is getting back and syncing the schedules with my wife to make sure we're doing our aerobic exercise, or even strengthening exercises, so that when we do get into our recreational, it'll be a lot less cumbersome on our bodies. But I would like to say that we are an athletic family. But just to put that inconsistency in practice is going to be a little bit what we need to focus on at this upcoming year. And then also, like I was telling you earlier, we have some things in terms of park days with the littles, because all of our sports are getting filtered through the littles now. But seeing my daughter have an interest, when we do have the TV on, Dad, turn tennis on. Dad, I want to watch golf. I mean, dude, the Winter Olympics just passed. They got this girl out in Oakland that just, I think, brought a gold medal home or something like that in ice skating. And I was like, okay, I just happened to turn it on and was watching her. And about 20 seconds into it, my daughter looks at me, 2 now. Daddy, I want to watch golf. I was like, you know what? I kind of do too.
Me too.
So again, in one of the questions you'll see, hopefully we'll touch on. But, there's a little bit of that, secretly and emotionally, I want you to be involved with this as well. But are you just doing this because Dad likes it, right?
That's what I was going to ask you, because I know you had mentioned that, I mean, I know a lot of parents. I knew a lot of parents while I was playing. I know a lot of parents now that live vicariously through their kids with what they, want. And, I don't know. I feel like at times it's not necessarily a bad thing if you have somebody that if you have a child that you just want to be active, they're not really interested in anything. Then put them in a sport that you like. So then that way, they can see if you're trying to get them active, it's a win-win. You get to be in the sport that you like, and then they're active. But I think that if they're showing interest or disinterest in a sport, then I think you got to make the decision for them. But I know that's hard for some people when they, some people plan their whole marriages and who they have kids with surrounded around athletics. I'm like, you're 6'5", I'm 6'5". You played volleyball, I played basketball. We have kids. We get them on the basketball court, on the volleyball court, maybe track and field, maybe high jump, maybe long jump. Who knows? We might
end up tall as Victor Wembanyama,
Right. So I understand the preconceived thought process of how your kids can kind of be from an athletics perspective. But I don't know how I don't think I could ever make my kid do something. Cohen loves basketball, loves football. Maybe he does love it because he played it with me growing up, and we would go to the park and play basketball, or we would go outside and play catch with the football. Maybe that had something to do with it. I honestly think not. I think that he likes it for his own reasons, because the things I see with why he likes it, I'm like, that has nothing to do with why I like that's he's thinking about the way the players play today, or AAU circuit, and he watches these things, and I was like, I didn't have anything to do with that. I just like being able to make jump shots. To me, it's just about the jump shot, and that was why. So it could be a variety of things for, at least for him, but I don't know. A lot of parents, I know they still do very much so live vicariously through their kids with their athletics.
Yeah, man. To speak, and that was one of the prompts, right? I thought that would be a fun discussion and topic. I don't know. I'm in a circuit of individuals who have athletic mindset and have that background of athletics. My brother and I played a lot of sports. And the funny thing about this is my parents were not vicarious through us. My parents didn't play sports. They weren't involved with that. My dad, 6'2", long limbs. I'm just like, you didn't play anything, bro? But no, he just didn't get into it. His father was.
What did he do outside of school?
Oh man, he was a tech dude. He was He was very much into, as he went to a Christian college, he was very much into helping out the church in various facets. And he was busy in that way. I mean, photography, boom, missed it. As a young man, he was a great photographer. And so he was into the arts adjacent, if you want to call it the arts, it is the arts, but he was into that. And I think some of that naturally rubbed off on us. If we, pivot a little bit, some of that rubbed off on us in terms of like, I have a little bit of a background with the camera. My brother, the same. He's more into it. I would say my brother's more of a photographer than I am. So that type of stuff we did, and I think it was in the back of my mind because, like, oh, Dad did it. So I do think there is a level of, I guess, help and rubbing off. But he never forced a camera into our hand. But in terms of me with sports and my daughter and my son, time will tell. My son is almost 1. My daughter is a little over than 2. But my daughter's starting to get some stuff to her in terms of the cognition and her intent and her will. And so, she'd be taking and messing around with our club. So the first thing we got her was a putter, my first putter or whatever, just from a golf shop. We thought it was cute, whatever. When we go putt, when we go do this, when we go play the greens, we'll just mess around. But she's starting to swing it like a driver. And I'm like, listen, those are 2 different things, right? So we get to the sporting goods spot, we get her a couple clubs finally. And I mean, she lit up, just excited. Now, again, at 2 years old, I can't tell if it's because Dada's doing it that she likes it or she actually likes it. But there are little hints that I'm starting to get that, man, she actually might genuinely like it. But I break my heart every day and I tell myself, you know what? She's going to one day look at those clubs and say, I don't want to touch those things ever again in my life. So I'm just like, I'm preparing myself for that.
Right.
So that when it happens, I'm resolved with it. But at the same time, like my parents didn't push anything on us. But I do. I mean, subtly, I tell her every day, I'm like, hey, you're going to Stanford to play golf, right? She'll be like, yeah. I'm like, you're going to be on the LPGA, right? She goes, yes. And she'll be like, oh, bruh, he plays baseball. What do you play? I play golf. So I'm like, I'm just putting that in her. But I want to put one thing.
It into her mind. That's
I want to put one more thing. My wife put me, she got me hip to this thing, and she was talking about the difference of the wealthy and others, right? And not to say that we're desiring to be super wealthy or anything like that, but of course you do want a better future for your own children than even what you had. And so what she identified was certain sports like tennis, like golf, which a lot of times you'll see a certain demographic play. She says there's just an expectation to play it, almost like the piano lessons, almost like these things. It's not an option. You just put your children in it. And if you do it young enough and it's an expectation and it's a part of the routine, it becomes a part of their fiber. And I thought about it and I was like, you know what? Yeah. I mean, we're bringing them up in so many other different worldviews or in this, dare I say, bubble of a life between her and I. We're bringing them up in that. And we have different things that we like, different things that we like to eat, watch, read, whatever it is. So why couldn't we just add those elements in it and it just become a part of them? So I think there's a balance of that vicarious, while you want them to be the Nelly Cordas and the Scotty Schefflers or the Serena Williams or whomever of the world, there's still a level of, hey, they just might end up liking it. It might just become.
Well, let me ask you this question because I saw this interview. Are you familiar with Amon-Ra St. Brown, the NFL wide receiver?
Yeah. He's Detroit guy.
Plays for the Lions.
Yeah.
His father was a bodybuilder. He competed in the Arnold Classic. Like, so him in his own right was very athletic and was really big in bodybuilding. And I saw this thing with him that was he was like, parents need to force their kids to play sports and force their kids. And I think I understood more of what he means. This is not necessarily something to like condemn what he's saying, but to your point of like, one day, the prepping for yourself of like when your daughter decides like, I don't want to do this anymore. How do you navigate that with making sure that it's not quitting because you don't want to deal with adversity, right? And versus you quit because you're like, no, like I've done what I wanted or I got what I wanted out of this. I don't just don't want to do it anymore. How would you navigate something like that within your kid? Because this is something I think I deal with my son, my oldest son, that I see things and where I'm like, do you want to stop because you're not good enough yet, or you're not where maybe somebody else is that's on your team that might be better than you, and it's making you feel like insecure or something like that? Because I don't want you to quit because of that. But if it is something like, I just don't want to do it, man, like this isn't for me, then I don't want you to play, and that's fine. What do you think?
That's a funny question you ask, because while I haven't seen that interview, I do think that there have been some internal discussions. My wife and I. My wife's big in sports, and she played sports growing up, not collegiate, but high school. But her brother played collegiate sports, and for whatever reason, she has this ticking thing like, no, we're going to be a sports family, right? And again, I very passionately want that internally.
Yeah.
But I'm fighting against Elliott to not be. There's some brilliance in Richard Williams, right, and King Richard, right. But I'm fighting against that because, again, I don't want to be overbearing, and I do realize the burnout is real, right? You see all these kids are playing these AAU circuits and all these things that they haven't even turned 10 yet, and I'm like, the burnout's real. And why do I know the burnout's real? Well, because, and we'll get to your question, but I played a lot of baseball. I was on a travel squad from 9 until 18, until it was time to go to college. Thought I was going to go to college baseball. I had offers, all that stuff. I signed the letter of intent, but I ended up getting to a point where I don't know if it was the letter of intent was not maybe where I wanted to go or not where I thought I was worth. But I ended up looking at that life, and I ended up looking at a life of, okay, I was doing this because I liked the sport. Now I'm going to be doing this because people like me in the sport, type of thing, right? They have an expectation of me. And so I don't know that was necessarily adversity in my eyes as much as it was, you know what, I'm content with what I've done in this space, and I'm ready to let it go. I think that if I had a dad that was like, hey, consider this, consider that, maybe I would have gone that route. But my pops was like, do what you want to do. So I think I was content to walk away from it. Now, if and when that happens with my daughter, after she gets involved, or my son, when he gets involved with the sport for so long, I think what the guy's father is saying is right. I think there is a level of do this because of some of the life skills that you'll gain. But I think, going more specifically to the question you asked, the adversity piece and the quitting piece, I hope that is something that we eradicate early, because I'm doing things now with tasks around the house, with tasks in their daily lives. Even though they're hard, I'm going to talk you through it. Even though they're difficult, even though you don't enjoy it, even the process of it, I'm going to talk you through it. I'm not going to coddle you through, whether it's whatever it could be, right? But I'm going to talk you through it so that number one, I'm building your conscience, but you know that it can be done. Even though it's hard at first, you can work yourself and talk yourself through it. And so I'd like to think that we're providing that environment, especially my wife and I could really lean on her. Like I said, she's the non-negotiable with the sports, which is fine. But I'm going to end up being the coach. So you just know when I get my hands on them, just know we're going to get busy. But she's the one that's basically like, no, it's a non-negotiable. You're going to play. And I think there's a level of good in that, because there's so much you can learn from sports. And my mindset is, why I like tennis and golf is, I want you to play an individual sport, so you have nothing but you to fight with. And then I want you to play some good team sports, so now you have to rely on others. So you can see the difference. And I think it's going to build them as, whatever it is, leaders in this world better, just because they have their personal adversity, collective adversity, and then still the goal orientation with that. So I don't know if I answer your question more directly.
No. I think you articulated it well, like with being able to navigate it, that I think it's a two-party system in the sense of, like, for what you've done, and what you're doing on the home front, what your wife is doing on the home front with it. But philosophically speaking, it sounds like you both are grounded in, like, sports have way more value than just the score at the end of the game or the role that you played in it. I think it pays dividends into your life. And I would agree with you on that I think sports are a great way to practice those disciplines that are necessary in life to be successful, that I just don't see in any other extracurricular currently. And you know, for me, like, I love the arts. Like, I still would say sports for youth is the best way to gravitate towards life skills.
What type of teacher is it?
Of the competition of it. And you know, we live in a society that is competitive, you know, so it's hard to, you know, with film, with music, it's not really competitive unless, you know, you're in a festival or whatever, like, you know, like you're on the business side of it, and those are different levels of competition and things like that. But like with just the pure art of it, it's just what you make it, right? And it's what you feel, and you express it, and then it's done. It's not necessarily like measured up, or there's metrics, or there's, you know, a goal orientation, as you put it, like with art. Like, it's just, your idea is to create, right? Like, that's the goal.
And you make a good point too. But even with the arts, right? There's a level of subjectivity that you have to force yourself to put your all into it. Whether you're painting, whether you're in film, whatever else, like maybe golf and tennis. Hey, this is you. This is your baby. You're putting it into it. Now, I know there's sometimes different elements that play a part, but for the most part, there's that. But I mean, what type of teacher are sports? I mean, you dealing with loss. How many people that are our counterparts, maybe millennials and younger, that you look up, and by the time they've maybe high school, college, and maybe they go do some grad school or med school or law school, basically they've been in school this whole time. Like, how many jobs have you had? It's like, oh, you've never worked in your life, or you've been so focused on books, which is good and beautiful, but did you ever play? You can tell those people when you're working with them as a young man, you're like,
never done anything.
You've never played sports. You've never played sports. That's why, like, you know, adverse discussions with maybe superiors or subordinates or whomever at work. Oh, cool. You know, tell me what I need to do. Tell me my deltas in my work. Tell me how I can get better. I don't take any offense of you getting in my face in that sense. Obviously, don't violate HR, but you know, I get that point, because now it's like, oh, you know, you can have a candid conversation. We used to have coaches in our face, right? Back when we were coming up, like, tell us how it is, you know? And so when you realize how beneficial sports can be for you, I mean, I think there's so many life lessons in it. And so I think that's a major reason. And then also just the sheer cardio of it, like how and what it does for your physical health, you know? So
do you think Jesus had a jump shot?
Oh, I think it was wet. I really do.
I feel like he
could walk on water, Jeremy. He could walk on water. What are we talking about?
I feel like he was more of a Pau Gasol type player. Like, you know, he could finish around the basket. He could hit a couple open ones, but you're not relying on that J like that.
Whose game most resembles what Jesus's game would have been like?
It's tough because I don't want it to be like, I think this player is the greatest player.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Okay. Knowing what you know of Jesus, whose game?
Kawhi Leonard. Versatile, two-way, quiet, focused, elite.
Not John Stockton?
No.
You know, he passed a lot. You trying to tell me the Lord and Savior wouldn't pass?
Abraham dropped a lot of dimes. Abraham dropped a lot of dimes. I don't know if
they used to call Jordan Black Jesus.
I know, but that's what the atmosphere around this conversation and the social trope of it is Jesus equates to greatest of all time.
Right.
And I just want to have a basketball conversation of what type of game did this man have? Because I had to get on the court with him, like, I just gotta, like, you know, I respect it, Lord and Savior, but
all right, let's confine it to the game now.
I'm gonna pull this though.
Let's confine it to the game now. I think I like Shea, but I think he foul baits a lot. So I think Jesus was of great integrity. Shea. I don't think he'd be flopping like that.
Shea. You know who else could be good is, and it's different because they show those attributes in different ways. Jokic. I think Nikola Jokic could also be.
He could do everything. He could do everything.
He could do everything, right? Like he can do everything. He's not necessarily. I mean, he is probably the best, like, awareness, I would say, court vision, fusion point guard that we have, because he leads the league in assists. But I think that the biggest attribute that he has is he knows his presence so well that when he moves, the game moves. Right.
So it's like, oh, they call him the Joker, but really it's the Miracle Man.
Yeah, like he can make it happen, right? Like when you have a player that's like that, that's like, and I would say like another player that's like that is LeBron James, or like they see the game, they're setting the game up, they're setting you up, and you don't even realize it. Like Jokic does that like all the time, so you don't even realize that he is setting this up. And
King James, King Jesus. I don't think that Jesus would have turned the ball over that much. You know what I mean?
No, but if he did, it was humbly. Right, like that's if it was a humble turnover, right? Maybe trying to get others involved.
He turned the ball over because he wanted you to have it. He wanted you to have the ball. That's why he turned the ball over.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like we all fall short of the glory of God. So if you turn the ball over because I drop you a dime, right? I got the TO, but it's not me. We know that, right?
Your hands weren't. You weren't ready. You weren't ready. And like many times, what he's teaching, you weren't ready. What I was trying to give you. I get it.
I'm just trying to give you a sermon idea so that when you go up in front of you, so just real curious, right? Like if we had to draft, right?
Like if I had the time, church. If I had the time. Amen. Walls and lights. Nah, man. Yeah, that's funny. Oh my goodness.
So your faith is a huge component of your life now, and it has been for a very long time. Even in college, like I knew how much it was because you went to church, you involved yourself in the churches there. Faith has been something you talked about your dad and like how he leaned into church. It seems like from your adolescence, from your youth, you've and to present day, like your faith has been a pretty prominent aspect of your life. How has that involved yourself, into like achieving? Because with being in leadership in a church, you go into the world and you preach the gospel, and I think you want it, to touch on the idea of having strong families of faith and community.
Yeah.
How are you in the practice of that now, and then also reflectively, how do you feel like you embody that for your own family as dad?
Wow, that's great. Where I am now, it definitely was a process of hitting my head up against the wall, a process of making continuous mistakes, a process of falling short many times. But I think what my parents instilled in me, and by no means am I saying that my faith is my parents' faith, because that's impossible. But what I am saying is I think they set a great foundation in my life, my brother's life. My brother just got married, and I think turning the corner, he's going to be interested in doing the kid route here soon. But to see his growth in the faith realm, you can kind of look at us as if you knew us as young men, but if and compared to knowing us now, it's like, oh, okay, that's just a prodigal son situation type thing, right? Where they got to smelling themselves, they got off the beaten track, but they still knew where home was. And I think we knew and know where home is because of the home we were brought up in. So I definitely have to be thankful and express my gratitude towards what my parents and my late grandparents, both of my grandparents, my mother's parents, would have passed in the calendar year of 2025. And so that didn't rock the family in a sense of we weren't expecting it. I mean, they were both well into their 90s, and so it was a blessing. But to see how intergenerationally they have helped to expose the next generation to God and to the church and the expectation, right? We talk about all this success with sports and, the expectation therein and success therein. It's like, oh, there's consistency in it. There's consistency in being with the congregation. There's consistency in availing yourself for studies. There's consistency, and it can't be to be that consistent. At least I'm talking not only my life, but I'm talking about the forefathers. It couldn't have been by accident, and the success of it was not anything without consistency. You were dedicated to it. You made it a part of your life. It was a part of your fiber. It was the expectation. I'll get into your answer, but there was one morning, as you know, I preach. I'm a minister in the Church of Christ here in Northern California. So I have my hands on a lot of the teaching and the instruction, and right. it was a Sunday morning, and I'm getting a few things together, and a lot of times we make sure the kids are together before we get together. But this one Sunday morning in particular, my daughter, who's 2, mind you, was looking at me like, because I wasn't dressed yet. I wasn't in my Sunday's best, as they call it, and uh, she's dressed, her brother's dressed, mom's dressed, and she's like, "Dad, Bible study?" Like, she's looking like, like, you not going? And, obviously my daughter's not 18. She's in this bubble that we've created for her. But my heart just melted to know, like, this is her world. This is the level of expectation that she has, that we have for her. I have for my wife has for me, and thus our children. And she turned to me looking like, "Hey, what you doing? You're slacking, basically. You're not ready. We're all ready. What are you doing?" And I'm like, oh man, how beautiful it is. Now, whether or not she goes through her prodigal situation, and whether or not, she is built up on a faith later on in life, that's to be told. But I'd like to think that we're trying to expose them and try to bring them up in this. And so I guess to pinpoint your question a little bit further, I think the background of it, and where I have to tip my hat and where I have to give thanks to, is obviously to the great God of heaven, but also to a family who has been intentional about exposing us to this. And so, you follow up with the question, because I know I lost half of it, but the family dynamic.
Like, when you think about your role, it sounds like, it's a part of you. It's a part of your atmosphere. It's you make it to where it's so much a part of your life that your children can taste it. They see it as like, a tangible thing that they can grasp, being, having your faith being expressed and lived within on a day in, day out basis. And obviously with you being a leader in the church and delivering sermons and messages of the faith, it really hones probably even tighter for them, because they're like, no, I actually see my dad like doing this. We obviously live in a world that, God is not of. How has that embodied your teachings now, just as a minister, as a shepherd of the flock, to kind of build those strong families? Like, what do you say to families that, we look at this world now, and I know everybody says like, oh, it's crazy out there, right? But like, really it is, right? Like it is kind of in this new time of like, we're at technological advances that none of our families have ever seen before. Access to information is at its highest point that it's ever been. The music that you listen to, the media that you can consume, there's so many things that are wrapped around you in this world that it seems like there's so much pressure that's caving in. And at least when I talk to other people, like I just had a great conversation with another guy, Aaron Parker, who is building the Way Project, which is a project that works adjacent with churches that puts things into a practical sense, so that they're able to take the teachings, and kind of now like, here's the practice of it throughout the course of the week. And they do these community things. It's really cool. Really cool thing that he does. But there is this community driven aspect that he's even seeing too. And it sounds like that's something that for you as a leader in the church, you want too. How are you doing that? How are you getting that in the midst of all of this?
I'll tell you, and this is going to be a multifaceted answer, because I recall the initial question. It was based on the prompt. The strong families point, right, are strengthening the church through families. I kind of live by this internal motto, and I'm sure it's been somebody else's motto before, so I don't want to lay claim as if I was the one that had this brilliant idea. But there was a level of discussions I've had and teachings that I've come across, but essentially my passion is to really strengthen the church through families. And quite frankly, look at society. I look at it like this way. You break it down like, you can't have a strong society without strong families. You can't have a strong church without strong families. Strong families, and what I mean by that, I'm talking about the core nuclear family that is working for a specific cause, spiritually, families that keep themselves together. It's just one of my passions. But if you can categorize some of my evangelism, and what I mean by evangelism for maybe somebody who's like, why is he using such a big word? What I mean by evangelism is the going out, the proclaiming, the sharing the message, the finding a sense of relatability through Christ, right? And building that consensus, but then showing them, getting them into Bible studies to see not Elliott's way, but this is what we can both read in our scriptures, right? And in turn, being a part of a church, we'll get into that. But I think that my evangelism is very much focused on, and it's ever more present now because I have two young, is focusing on young families. Because my thought is, if I can find young families, or rather, if I can help to influence a young family, you're already setting yourself up for generational success. What I mean by that is, let's say I find I'm not going to call any names, but we met a young family at the park. We just happened to go to the park. And this is one of those days I didn't necessarily feel like going to the park, but I'm so glad I did. So I go to the park, my wife there, my kids there, and there's a young family and the little girl's playing with bubbles and so on and so forth. And obviously the kids love bubbles. And so we get to talking and, I get this question of, hey, what do you do? And I said, I actually preach at a local congregation around the corner. Well, it just so happened that they're reading and studying and trying to figure things out on their own. And here we meet just by happenstance. And now they're like, hey, I was like, listen, I don't want to shock you by just inviting you to church. I don't believe in that. Like, what I mean by that is, that's not my plight. I don't want to just invite you into the doors. I want to sit down and study with you to see if there's some consensus building, to see how we think about the word. And so a lot of what I do is very much focused on, or a lot of my outreach is very much focused on targeting young families, because you bring the mom and dad who are seeking in, and you bring a kid who's, in this example, 6'3". Well, by the time they're 13 and 16, they could be like, well, I've only known this on Sundays, or I've only known this as a way of life, or and I think that's so beautiful. But now you're also setting up the next stage of leaders, the next stage of congregants, the next, whatever it may be in the church. And so when you talk about the ways of the world, I think when you talk about it's crazy out there, I do think it's crazy. But even living in California, where it's not the Bible Belt, right? What I've noticed out here is there's a lot of established ideas and things in the Bible Belt, but here, because they're few and far between, and the congregations are smaller congregations, they're like smaller pockets of congregations here and there. What I found is, it's basically, if you want to put it on your tech hat or put on your small business hat, it's like a startup culture. It's very much startup culture, even with the church. And while, yes, I'm using a secular term, I'm seeing some synergy there, because you can, all of your ideas that you want to get out, whether it's updating technology, whether it's keeping up with the times and that, most of them you can get off the ground, and everybody's very much open to it because it's new and there's not already pre-existing structure that would undermine that. And so I think it's really beautiful. But going back to the ways of the world being so crazy, I think the reason it is because some people just, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but some people are just, they flat out are ignorant. They just don't know. They just don't know. A lot of times they would be interested in learning what you have to bring them, learning what you have to teach, learning what you have to preach, but they just have never had a well put together proposition about it, or they never had, it's not a part of their fiber, it's not a part of their life. So a lot of it is like, oh no, that's a little foreign to me, as opposed to, no, I'm categorically against that. I'm categorically anti. And so it really is about rapport building. It's about showing people who you are, which you see with Jesus and the apostles. It's really about having some commonalities, and then being able to have the platform to be able to speak the truth when that time comes up. And so a lot of times you think about those door knockers, and I don't want to pick on anybody, but you think about people just knocking on your door trying to sell you something, or trying to sell you religion, which door knocking can work in its proper arena, but we're at a different time where people can kind of smell you coming from a mile away. I mean, that's why you have those no solicitation signs on doors, because people don't want to be bothered all day, whether you're selling them solar or you're selling them religion. So really it's about getting in people's lives, having a commonality. We go to the library, we go to the park, we do this. We're in society, we go golfing. You know how many great conversations I've had on the golf course with people who maybe thought they were religious or thought they were spiritual or maybe want to be more spiritual or whatever. We have some great conversations. So it's about not hiding under a rock, but very much making yourself available, being proud of what you do and leaning into that. So that's kind of my philosophy of it. You know, we'll see over time whether or how much it works or how effective it is. You know, but going to that generation before, I came from a grandfather who was like, you know, you got to have at least 2 jobs, right? So all my life, I'm making sure, you know, around my working schedule, I have at least 2 jobs. Well, this is the first time in my life that I have 1 job, and that's with the church, and it's fine. That's not to begrudge that as much as it's to say I do have a lot of extra time. So with that extra time, how am I using it? Can I use that extra time? Let me make sure I didn't. Okay, here we go. With that extra time, can I pour into what the primary thing is right now? And I've found that if I'm not being idle and if I am being proactive, there's great dividend that can come from that.
Do you, I mean, with your position in the church,
mm-hmm.
you're very, being a leader in a church, you know, you could be in the building, out of the building, the role still stands, right? Like you still are very much that. How do you balance being dad and being this ambassador, this leader, this minister of faith? Like in these type of situations, a scenario can come up as like, you know, you're at the park with your kids, and then there's this moment that happens, and then you are having these conversations, and then it's leading into like, you know, just because of the presence that you have and because of, you know, who you are as a person and what you believe. Do you ever have those moments where you're like, am I balancing everything right? Am I really putting my focus into my kids? Am I putting my focus into my faith? Is it a mix of both? Is it, and not so much of like, understand like your faith is like a part of who you are. So that's not really what I'm saying, but you have a role in a institution that is separate from your faith, right? Like, it's like, this is my role. Actually, I'm a minister, and like, that's like your occupation. And then you have my role as dad, my role as husband. Are there distinguishables between those for you? Because I know I've talked to different ministers, and it's honestly a spectrum of answers. Some say like, yeah, I do actually make sure that like I'm just dad here, like, or some are like, no, it's like a combination, or they're like, it's kind of hard for me to figure out when that happens. It's all, that's what I've heard, at least heard with different, just talking with different dads.
That's a good question. How to balance all those. I don't feel any different from how I felt when I grew up, being a suburban kid, teammate, friend, clown, just a guy, right? Like maybe a little bit on the jock side with sports in high school, but I was in the band. I was multifaceted. And the reason I cite that is I try to consider myself as someone who's pretty circumspect about who I am. And so when you compound the idea of reading through the scriptures, you must certainly keep the level of humility that is necessary. I don't think I'm any different from anybody else that comes in the building or that calls himself a Christian. What I mean by that is, you know, you have James and John, they were asking Jesus a few things about who's going to be the greatest in his kingdom. And he answered them and said, something that I don't think that they necessarily were expecting, but he's saying, he that is greatest among you, let him be your servant, or prepare yourself to be a servant. You're going to have to be the greatest servant if you are, quote unquote, the greatest in people's eyes. And I've never let myself think that other people think highly of me. Not to say I don't have a decent or healthy self-esteem. Not to say I don't have confidence, as much as to say I don't, when knowing what Jesus is saying to his own apostles, mind you, I just keep that in mind that, a part of this role of being a minister is I'm supposed to serve. A lot of people don't think about it like that. I'm supposed to serve. And a lot of times we think about serve like serving tables, right? Or we think about, which I have done, right? I've customer service background. I've worked in restaurants, so I know what humble jobs look like. But I say that to say, I think all those things have helped me in this position now, because now it's not about the title. Preacher, minister, whatever you call it. I know a lot of this world, wants to call it pastor and all that, but I don't think biblically that's what describes me. But I say that to say, if you're really looking at what the Messiah would say, it's like, oh no, you need to be a servant. you need to do for others. You need to be ready to wash feet. You need to be able to take off your clothes, give them to somebody else. You need to be able to do that, put yourself in a position for that. And so practically kind of what that looks like is you got to be ready to take out trash when trash is time to take out. You got to be ready to do the hard things, or the things that are the jobs that people, obviously look over or don't esteem highly. You got to be ready to do it all. And I think that's really encapsulates. And how to balance that with dad is really just the information share. How to balance that with husband is making sure we are on the same page, making sure we're on the same page with this position, but also making sure we're on the same page with the expectation of even the wife of who the preacher is. So I realize the world might think of me in a certain way or hold me in a certain regard. And I realize, even, again, we're a small congregation here in California, small but impactful. I think that there can even be that level of, he needs, something comes up so that, take that to Elliott. When it's really like, well, let's work together on this. Some tasks are going to be delegated, but delegated not for empowerment reasons, as opposed to delegated just because I said do it. No, sometimes when I'm telling somebody else that this, maybe you take this head on and do it, is because I don't want you to think that this is a one-stop shop. There's an example in the Old Testament with Moses, and his father-in-law actually had to school him, saying, you take on too much. Everybody's coming to and through you for everything. Appoint other people so that they can see to some of these matters and you kind of deal with the higher matters. But I'm no Moses. It's just to say that I keep the ideas of being postured as someone great at bay, because I'm nothing. Not that I'm nothing, but I'm your brother. I'm your friend. I'm whatever you need me to be. If you need me to take out the trash, if you need me to go help you with moving day, if you like, that's what I am. And so I think the balancing of it is, if you have the right mindset of it, you keep yourself humble. I mean, it can be balanced easy. And then as my kids grow up, that level of expectation they have, we'll work through that together. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. But
it does. Like, it sounds like you ground yourself in the principles of your faith and what the teachings of Christ teach you, and then you just kind of let everything else take care of itself from there. And generally, it does. So it seems like it's very straightforward. I got one more question for you, and then I'll let you go. What is, when you think of every scripture that you have studied, that you have spoken of, that you have taught on, what is the one that you read that stands out the most of you on what fatherhood
That's hard, Jeremy.
is?
Oh, fatherhood. The one that's, this is fitting. It's Proverb 22:6. Proverb 22:6. I'm going to be careful because there's a later scripture in there too. But it's, train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. The reason that means a lot to me is because of that foundation I talked about, having worked with my parents, given by my grandparents, now from my parents to us, and now we're working to do this with my littles. That encapsulates all of fatherhood, because there's a lot of, dare I say, anxiety and worry, even though there shouldn't be anxiety and worry, but there are a lot of concerns that happen or come about as a parent. And a lot of it is you're worrying about, well, what's later going to look like for them? How can we ensure that these principles that we have laid before them are maintained, are cared about, and are, consistent within their lives? And so I think about that, and it's something that I always go back on, because I'm like, well, wait a minute, the blueprint's there. All we have to do is do the proper training, or do the God-given training, and all those other things are going to hash themselves out and work themselves out. And so I really think about Proverbs 22:6. Solomon would give these words, And then I think about, on the hard days, Proverbs 22:15, foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child, and a rod of correction will drive it away. But it's not to say I'm just wailing on my kids as much as it's to say, yeah, sometimes there's some stern love that needs to be given. Sometimes there's some correcting. Sometimes there's some redirecting. And there's that tough love. But nevertheless, the love that needs to be given. And so I think that as a father, that scripture, there's many that talk about it, but that scripture to me, I think of Hebrews 12. There's some chastening discussion in terms of how we can be chastened by our heavenly Father and our earthly fathers and show them the proper reverence. But really, Proverbs 22, it kind of gives you insight into the future, right? That's the unknown, but that scripture gives you insight into, hey, this is what can become if you just train them up. And so that training, that discipline, that coaching, that instruction, it's being consistent in all of that. So I really love that scripture as something that I can kind of go to sleep on peacefully, knowing that my wife and I are trying our very best. I'm sure you can look at our lives and say, well, that ain't perfect, right? But we're trying our very best to be able to do that.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. And I think you guys are doing it and you're on the right path, heading towards a better tomorrow led with your faith, man. It really is refreshing to hear such a committed devotion that I think is really inspiring. And it is a magnet towards that same commitment. It is something that I've seen a lot in fathers, specifically Black fathers, that what I can say in the conversations that I've had, in the interactions that I've had with hundreds of dads throughout doing this, like thousands of dads, there is an innate feeling to love something greater than yourself. And it's usually expressed through their faith. And it's like a part of us. It's like a part of a piece of our soul, a piece of our spirit that we want to personify all the time, is that there are things that we love and that we commit to that are greater than ourselves. And for you and for so many others, it's led by your faith, and then it's your family. And it really is shown not just in the conversations that we're having today, but in how you choose to live your life and how you go about it. You have made it a prism of love and affection that for all to see. And it would be hard to be able to ignore that if they did actually get to know you and did actually get to see you. So I want to say thank you for taking the time to speak with me and share some of your perspectives and your outlook on things and what you're working on and what you're going after and how you're balancing doing everything at the same time. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, if anybody wants to ask you more questions, how can they get a hold of you? What can they do?
Oh, that's a great question. And I'll sound off with this. I want to show appreciation for having me on. I know in this culture of things, faith isn't always highlighted or not always put to the front. And there's sometimes a lot of suppression of speech around it. And I do appreciate having the latitude to be able to do that. And I'll answer that question. But the kind of some things you said before all the way to now, how you can love something kind of greater than yourself and with all your, it's really from faith to family. It's really about sacrifice. It's about sacrifice. Obviously, it's the springtime, and maybe more people might put their antennas up around faith because of the various days that are coming up. But it's really about sacrifice. Jesus sacrificed for us on the cross. Finding out what that means and then applying it to our lives is just literally what I'm about, and trying to share that message. But if people want to get into some correspondence, email, I can always drop my email. But we're in Vacaville, California. So Vacaville Church of Christ is where I work, and I have some material up there that I share from week to week. But it's VacavilleCoc.com. VacavilleCoc.com, and that's in Northern California. And there's contact pages, Bible study setups there that you can have some correspondence, and those things get directly pinged to me. So we can get active if anybody wants to just study a little bit more. I believe Bible questions get Bible answers. You don't want to ask about this book just to get my opinion. You want to. I believe in showing what thus saith the Lord, and so there's information, there's portals there to be able to reach out and contact, and so happy to spend as much time as I can with whomever.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to another episode of the After Bedtime Podcast. If you have any other questions, if you have a dad that you think would be good for the show, if you want to learn a little bit more about Elliott and about the Church of Christ and what he's doing out there at Vacaville, how do you say it? Like
Vaca, VACA. It's really, I think it means Cowtown in Spanish.
Cowtown,
but
so Vacaville, Cowtown. If you want to learn more, and you can also just email the afterbedtimepod@gmail.com. Subject line it with Elliott Williams episode, and then go into a little bit more. And I promise you, I will make sure that he gets all of the information. And then hopefully you'll be able to make some connections. If not, hopefully you are inspired. Hopefully it causes you to reflect. Maybe think about some things that are greater than yourself and how you can find a way to sacrifice to showcase that. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night. And stay tuned for the next episode where we talk with another great Black American dad.
Sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate you.